Come on, everyone. This is Sheets, and we're going to do a quick lineup build and look at tonight's NHL slate with literally nothing else going on tonight. NHL is full front and center, and they actually have an 888 today, which people are going to be firing at, and I am going to be one of those people. Our shout out to Adam Perry, who has been joining us from time to time. He actually won, I think, the cross check last night for a flat, for a crisp 10K. That sneeze. So we're going to do the same thing that we did yesterday. We're going to kind of go through the projections quickly. But the first thing we're going to do, which I usually do before I even look at the projections, is try to get an idea of who I think is going to look good. It's one kind of just spot check. And it gives us an idea of what the slate could look like. So we're going to share with SaberSim, share our SaberSim screen first, and you'll see that SaberSim's implied goal totals are already out here like this. And you'll see that there's not all that much nearing 4 as far as an implied goal total, but you see Winnipeg at 3.4 kind of stand out over everybody else. So I would expect that with respect to just like who the best play is, I would imagine it would probably come from Winnipeg. And then a whole bunch of teams all at about, 3 goals. As far as the way the slate breaks down, very interesting. You have a 7 o'clock and a 7:30 game, and then a big break between these those two and the other 3. So you do have the opportunity to see how things are going into late swap, either manually or using the various tools at your disposal with SaberSim to do that. So I certainly encourage you guys to take advantage of that opportunity. You have a full, 2 hours to see what's going on in these first 2 games to decide, or have SaberSim decide for you, how to late swap. Before I do, well, I'll wait before I put my contest up here. Actually, if we're going to do process, let's do it. First thing I want to do is make sure that the contests that I'm playing are preloaded into SaberSim. It's going to make the contest sims much easier when this is already preloaded. So I already put a bunch of dummy lineups in, and it'll show what I'm playing. And I'm actually playing FanDuel tonight. I actually came very close to winning the GPP on FanDuel last night. And I think that might have been the first time I ever played NHL on FanDuel, because usually the prize pools are extremely small, but yesterday it was good enough. So we're gonna fire it again today. So we're gonna play 150 in the $4 over here. We're gonna play a whole bunch of things over here, and we're gonna see what kind of lineups we get to at this early juncture. All right. So first of all, let's take a look at these projections. And again, I'm not going to display these all the time because this is usually for premium subscribers for TrueDFS. And what I like to do is, again, just sort by Sheets value score, which is my own way of, factoring both point per dollar and fantasy points. And again, all we're looking to see is who rates near the top that is from the same team. In other words, that's what you're looking for in hockey. Just trying to find correlation, trying to find guys in the same line. And when they all project well, that's usually going to be the top projected stack. And you'll see, top 2 are coming from Winnipeg. And you'll see actually of the top 20, you get 1, 2, 3, forget the goalie, but 4 are coming from Winnipeg. So you'd like to think that the Winnipeg line is going to be the top, top option. And that kind of justifies what we looked at earlier, which is the regular team totals. Now, again, this doesn't factor into account whether you can get them in. And it doesn't factor into account ownership, because I promise you it will come with quite a bit of it. But as you'll see, I mean, you have Gabriel Velarde at 4,500 on the first line and first power play line is going to make these lines very affordable. So, this Winnipeg line is going to be easy to get to, and it's going to be very, very popular. Next thing I look at is you have these 2 Utah guys kind of rated near the top. The only problem is that they're not on the same line. They are on the same power play line, but not the same line. And then you have a couple of Florida guys, Ekblad, Kachuk, and well, this is the goalie. But at least they're from the same line up here. You have a good one-off with Asa Lindell, 3,100. Make the rest of your lineups work. And all the other good values are not really tied to particular stacks. So I'm going to go back to the idea that Winnipeg is going to be clearly the best stack. And if I had to guess, I would say something like Florida or Utah would be next. That's just my guess. But let's just see. Now, before we do that, let's take a look at the stack view. And we're looking at the same type of rankings, but by stacks. And we rate them 3 ways. One is by raw points, one is by value, which is essentially point per dollar, and the other is by modified, which is sort of like Sheets value score applying to stacks. So when we sort them by raw stacks, as you'll see, Winnipeg clearly stands out. And then when we sort by point per dollar, it's Utah. Again, these are the 2 teams I already identified. Then Detroit pops in a little bit, and then you have Winnipeg. And then when you put the 2 together and you put modified stacks, then that's when Winnipeg can once again assert its dominance, followed by Utah, followed by Florida. So if we're building, for best plays, this is probably what we'd be getting. Winnipeg, Utah, Florida, So now what we're going to do is we're going to go into SaberSim and do initial builds. We're going to, you know what, I think do we have time to do it both ways? Yeah, I think we have time to do it both ways. We're going to build it with just the SaberSim projections, and then we're going to build it with our projections, and to see, again, garbage in, garbage out, inputs in, inputs out. Depending on what inputs you put in, it's going to affect your, what your outputs are, obviously. But we're going to use the same process for both to see the differences. Okay, so first of all, let's make 2 changes to the SaberSim projections, and then we're just going to build 5,000 lineups straight like that. Okay, so now we're using the SaberSim projections. And again, this is going to change, so I don't really mind doing this right now. These are completely going to change between now and 6:30, I guess. And then we're going to look at it in 2 different views. We're going to look at it in terms of how they rank based on Saber score, which is SaberSim's kind of metric for rating lineups based on upside, without considering the contest really that you're in. I mean, it's considering it with respect to it's saying this is what would be good in large field tournaments, but it's not completely tailoring your lineups to the contest, which is what the sims are designed to do. So we'll take a look and we'll see that when these are rated by Saber score, now it's sorting by small slate because it's a 5-game slate. And again, to see what this means, click on the eyeball. Should be somewhere. What happened? Saber score, small slate, eyeball. Okay, so this is the formula if anybody cares. So what this is doing, notably, it's using the projections, but it's also taking into account what they think the 85th percentile outcome of the lineup is going to be, which is, that's prioritizing upside. And then it's also digging it for ownership by subtracting 0.5 times the average adjusted ownership. So it's designed, this ranking system, to give you high upside lineups that might not be owned by everybody. And so to give you an idea of what that would get you, we would be getting actually not as much Winnipeg as you would think. That's very, very interesting. We'd actually be getting a lot of Minnesota. And it's surprising to me, but it's not so surprising when you consider that it is prioritizing ownership in some way. So all those Winnipeg guys are going to be pretty easy to get in, so they're probably going to be pretty high owned. So Winnipeg seems like a pretty sharp little pivot, which I never even thought about. Oh, there's a 2.5 goal total, second lowest total. But if you rank them in this way, that's what you're going to be getting. Yes, I do All-Star. I played both the Big Buy-In and the MMA. So this is interesting to keep in mind. So based on the SaberSim projections, we'd be actually getting 57% Minnesota. Now, the next question is going to be, do we do anything with the stack exposures? For those of you who've been following, you know that I hate playing non-highly correlative stacks. Like, I love playing either 4 3s, 5 2s, or 6s. But it's been argued that the lower the field, I mean, the lower the amount of games, the less you need to do that. And while I do agree, I still am very stingy with that. So I am going to manually X out these non highly correlative stacks. And that's probably a leak, but I just believe that none of the optimizers or sims or whatever are properly factoring in how violent correlation really is in hockey. So this is my process. I don't say that you should do this, but this is what I do. So when I do that, by the way, let's see how that impacts everything. It still actually makes more Winnipeg, more Minnesota actually. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to run the contest sims. And what this is going to do is it's going to take these 5,000 lineups that we created and compare them to what SaberSim feels the field is going to do in the various contests that we entered. And you see 3 or 4 completed. That means it's simming against all 4 of these contests that we said that we were going to be playing. Okay. And now it still gives me a whole bunch of Minnesota, even more so, actually. Now, the one thing I've not done yet is done anything with the min uniques. I'm not challenging myself to be more diverse. So let's do that a little bit. After we've run the sims, you'll see that these 56 lineups, the median destination ROI of these lineups is 248.4. What I'm going to do is I'm going to increase my min uniques slowly until this median destination ROI gets hit in a meaningful way. And meaningful is kind of made up. But I think 242 down to 214 is violent enough that I don't want to take that hit. So I'll instead go back up to min uniques 2. We'll double check and see stack exposure. That still has not been affected too much. So this is one build that I could play, and it's already extremely aggressive, right? 78% Minnesota with a 2.5 total. So if you wanted to be satisfied with this using the SaberSim projections, you just go ahead and you hit save to contest. Boom. Download. Oh, you know what I did? See, I was too quick. All right, so I'll show you what I did and then what I need to do. What I did was I just did direct fill, which basically takes the average ROI of all these lineups and just put them in everything, as long as it's simmed well against this particular contest. But what you can do is you use autofill, which is what I prefer to do. What that does is, again, I will, I'm not going to say this with every slate, but because I'm getting maybe some new people here, we'll talk about this. What setting this on autofill does is it runs the sim against the top contest in your list here. And then what it'll do is after it inserts those lineups, like I only have one entry in that, it's going to take that entry out of the pool before resimming it to the blue line. And then after it gives me that one entry, it's going to take that out of the pool, resim it to the cross-check, and assuming the top 50 go in there, then it will take those out of the pool, resim it, and then go into the to the World Championship. So what that, you do run the risk if you do that of not getting, for example, the best sim lineup in the cross-check special because it already have been removed if it's already the top one in the Abominable Snowman. So if you wanted to, you could do these one at a time, but I like to do it this way. And what I like to do is I like to sort it by fee so that if something is going to sim in all these, I'm going to make sure it shows up in the top, in the biggest body. So let's again do this again. You'll see it kind of blasting right here. 215, 215, 215. And once again, we're going to save these to contests. And then you'll see, by the way, when we hit the autofill, now we're actually getting more Vancouver. Save to contests. Boom. So depending on your settings, and this is what's so awesome about hockey, you're going to be getting either Minnesota's or Vancouver when you run the sims, all right? Which neither team, to reiterate, even showed up as top stacks. But remember, DFS is not about making the best plays, right? It's about making the most money. So if you're going to play lineups that everybody else is going to be playing, or at least close to them, that's not what you want to do. You want to get leverage and play lower owned lineups as long as they have some kind of chance to win. And sims kind of help you do that. So now instead of doing that with the SaberSim projections, let's use ours. And I'm not saying what's better or worse or whatever. I mean, as long as you have a reasonable set of projections, you're kind of in business. It's the same thing. Now, again, I'm not going to automatically create custom fields from ownership. Again, I think that's a little bit too advanced for me to presume that my fields are going to be better just based on my ownership than what Saberson has backtested. So I'm not getting involved with that with this sport, at least. So let's do the same thing. We've now changed the projections from SaberSims to ours. And again, if you use SaberSim, you can upload whatever set you want. If you're a Roto Grinders guy, you like the Roto Grinders projections, you like the pay dirts, or whatever. I don't want to leave anybody out, but whichever projection source you feel comfortable with, you can just throw it into SaberSim. And SaberSim, while they're listen, part of their value is creating their own projections based on their game simulations, but a huge amount of SaberSim's value is in the tool, right? In the actual lineup builder and simulator. All right, so we built this. Now, let's do the same thing we did before. Let's look at it by Saber score and see what we would get. And here we'd be getting like 60% Utah. You make a little bit of changes in the projections. In hockey, you're in totally different planets. Like in the NBA, I promise you that if I replace SaberSim projections with my own, it would affect the outputs by this much. But in hockey, it's just brutal because everything's so event driven that if you're like 1 point off in your projections or whatever, remember one correlates with one another. So it's just the way it is. So Utah, Dallas, and Florida. Again, if you wanted to, you can go ahead and and put more min uniques in, see how that affects, say, your average projection. Let's see if my stack exposure is still what I want it to be. Again, let's get rid of the 5s, the 4-2s, and all this stuff. And if you wanted to upload them straight from here, what you would end up getting is Utah and Dallas. But again, let's run the sims. Again, we're going to compare these 5,000 lineups with the new projections and the new 5,000 lineups, to what the field is allegedly supposed to do. And let's shall see what we come up with. Okay, so this one is getting like all of the Minnesota. That's pretty insane, isn't it? However, when you go into autofill, it's not quite as brutal. So let's go into, let's hit again. We'll put Abominable Snowman at the top, which is what we like. We'll sort by fee again. And boom. I'll download these from here. And we're off. Now, after that, I know what some people are going to ask. Let me just see something real quick. New exposures. Okay. This is what a lot of you are going to ask. Are you really going to play 100% Minnesota? Just because your process got you there? Well, I have bad news for you. Well, maybe it's good news for you. If you have faith in your process, you should not really worry about the outputs. So again, I'm not telling you guys what kind of risk to take or whatever. But again, the way I play, for me, is if I'm confident with my process, I'm going to play 100% of somebody if I get it. I feel that my biases are not as relevant or not as important as the actual algorithms that run these simulations. So I've already factored in that I'd like to be somewhat different, right? I mean, what I could do, what I didn't do yet, actually, I guess, is do the is go for more min unique. So I mean, we can do that. Let's just see. Uniques 2. Now I will also say, by the way, that this is a pretty high ROI here. So it's possible that all these inputs will change between now and 6, 7 o'clock. Now, if you really feel as though there's something wrong with the inputs, then peace, try to change them or whatever. And I've done that before. There have been some times where I'm like, something about this doesn't make sense. And you know what I'll do? I'll go right back to the Saber Score small slate, which was here, right? And I might put this in. I just might. But generally, I'm going to just go with what the inputs are. So let's still put these on enough now, right? Yeah. Boom. And boom. So again, this is not, the typical, NHL or sport breakdown. I get it. I'm not really telling you who to play. I'm not even necessarily telling you what good plays are. And I showed you. Listen, you want to know what the good plays are? The good plays are Winnipeg. Maybe the Utahs, whatever. But that's not the point of this. The point of this is trying to ingrain in you a process that works. And for me, it works. And again, you have to have a little bit of faith in the system here and not just play the best plays all the time, because the best plays are probably going to be the chalkiest plays. And in a sport like hockey, there's an incredible amount of variance in there. So that's pretty much all I have for tonight's slate. If I come back a little later, I'll let you guys know. I might actually have time to do it, so we'll see. Aside from that, listen, let's all try to repeat Adam Perry's success yesterday. And if you liked any of this and you aren't a subscriber already, see, I'm remembering to do this, Bobby. That's how good I am. Make sure that you go to truedfs.com and sign up. Get a lot of good offers for subscriptions. Make sure you like and subscribe to the video channel and all that marketing stuff.